Hello and welcome to this video where I'm looking at the mystery of lawlessness that is working. This mystery of lawlessness that Paul the Apostle spoke of in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 7. In verse 7 of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul speaks of a mystery of iniquity that was working. He uses the word mystery, which is mysterion in the Greek, something yet to be revealed in its fullness, something to be manifest in its fullness, and he uses this word iniquity. So it reads as this: for indeed the mystery of iniquity already works, but hinders until from the midst begins to be. The Greek word that Paul uses for iniquity is anomia. Now this anomia is a condition of without law, whether it's because of ignorance of it or because of violating it. It's contempt and violation of law, it's iniquity, it's wickedness. So Paul was speaking of this mystery of this condition of lawlessness. He could look out around him and see this condition of lawlessness that was already happening in his day. We look around today and we see this condition of lawlessness. We see what people are doing in this condition of lawlessness. We see that there is this lawlessness at work, but that this lawlessness also hinders, and one day it will explode. One day it will be manifest in its fullness. It will be as the days of Lot. It will be as the days of Noah. It will be as what Paul describes the last days as being when he described the last days, full of lawlessness. Now, in the beginning of verse 7, Paul uses this Greek word gar. This Greek word gar is a special Greek word assigning a reason, used in an argument, used in an explanation or intensification. So what Paul is talking about in verse 7 ties in with what he was speaking about in the earlier verses. We can use the word for indeed, or we can use the words no doubt, or we could use that word therefore. And as we all know, whenever the word therefore is used, we must always look at the preceding verses to find out how it all ties in. Because verse 7 ties in with the earlier verses. So what Paul was speaking of in the earlier verses was this. Paul was speaking of the apostasy, this rebellion, this transgression, this defection that must first take place. So Paul was speaking of the apostasy, the rebellion, the transgression, the defection, and he was also speaking of the revealing of that man of sin, that son of destruction. So there must be this apostasy, this transgression taking place, as well as this man, and this man is a man of sin. He is a man that will be doing wickedly. So in verse 4, Paul speaks of this man of sin and what the man of sin will do. And this man of sin will oppose himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped. He will exalt himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped. And he will, as God, sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So we have this apostasy, this transgression, this rebellion, this defection that must take place, and we have this man of sin doing wickedly. This is all of the sinfulness that is tying into verse 7. This condition of sinfulness and this revealing of this man of sin. Now the Greek word for sin is hamartia. Hamartia means to miss the mark, to err, to be mistaken, to miss or to wander from the path of uprightness and honor. It means to do or go wrong. It means to wander from the law of God and to violate God's law. That's what sin is. That which is done wrong is sin, an offence, a violation of the divine law in thought or in act, and collectively the complex or aggregate of sins committed either by a single person or by many. So we're starting to see this picture of apostasy, rebellion, transgression, this picture of this sinfulness, this picture of this man of sin that is yet to be revealed. So this mystery of iniquity that is spoken of in verse 7 ties in with transgression. It ties in with sin. Remember, iniquity is anomia. It's the condition when there is without law. It is the contempt and violation of law. It is iniquity. It is wickedness. And then you have sin, which is hamartia, means to wander from the law of God and to violate God's law. A violation of the divine law in thought or in act. So this mystery of iniquity we read of in verse 7 has everything to do with apostasy, being transgression, defection, rebellion, turning from following the Lord. It has everything to do with sin, which is to wander from the path of uprightness, to wander from the law of God. It has everything to do with iniquity, which is the condition of being without law. And then we have this revealing of that man of sin. So when we tie verses 6, 7, and 8 together, we see the picture more clearly. It reads like this. After all this sin we've been speaking about, after all this apostasy that Paul spoke of, it says this, now you know, church, what hinders that the man of sin might be revealed in his appointed time. For indeed, the mystery of this condition without law does already work. This mystery of the condition without law is manifest before our eyes, only hinders now until from the midst comes into existence. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. The truth is that this condition of being without law existed in Paul's day. The truth is that this mystery of the condition of being without law has continued and will continue, but it will also hinder until from the midst arises lawlessness in its fullness. Manifest in its fullness. You will see it happening in its fullness. And then will come into existence the man of lawlessness himself. And that wicked one will be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. We live in a lawless society, but it is nothing compared to the fullness of lawlessness we will see when that man of sin is revealed. It will be as the days of Noah. It will be as the days of Lot. We look around and we see lawlessness. We see what people are doing in this lawlessness, but it has not yet been manifest in its fullness yet. In Daniel chapter 8, Daniel is told something about this lawlessness being manifest in its fullness, and how then that wicked one will be revealed. In Daniel chapter 8, when you read verses 23 and 24, we see this truth. It says this, in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper, and practise, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. This person that is being spoken of here is that man of sin that Daniel speaks about, that Paul speaks about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. When you read the rest of Daniel chapter 8, it speaks of this man of sin, this little horn, the one who will be responsible for the 7-year covenant with many, the one who will be responsible for the abomination of desolation, the one who will be responsible for going into the temple and stopping the sacrifices and the oblations for taking place, the one that will be responsible for the 3.5 years of tribulation, the one who, when Jesus comes and gathers us to meet him, will destroy. In Daniel, we read of the little horn that is alive when Christ comes, and Jesus destroys that little horn that has caused so much pain. In 2 Thessalonians and Revelation, we read of that man of sin, the man of destruction, the beast, who will be alive when Jesus Christ comes and shall destroy at his coming. So remember this, when the transgressors are come to the full, is when we will then see the man of sin being revealed. When you look at what Paul spoke of in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, it becomes very clear, this condition of lawlessness that we see. It is working, we see it when we look around, but it is also hindering until that time when the transgressors are come to the full. And then the man of sin will be revealed, whom Jesus shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it has opened your eyes some truth of what Paul was speaking to the church about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. This condition of lawlessness, this condition of iniquity that is working and has continued to be working since Paul saw it, but is also hindering until when the transgressors are come to the full, and then it will be manifest in its fullness. And then that man of sin will be revealed. Thank you for watching this video.